But if you're Carlos Alcaraz, you can do whatever you want. If there's somebody that could do it, I believe it's him. But you just got to be super smart because that is, that's his moneymaker.
Carlos Alcaraz was tennis media's golden boy when the trophies kept landing. Now that injury has pushed him off court, some of that loud support suddenly sounds suspiciously quiet. At 23, the champion who carried highlight reels, headlines, and television debates is learning a brutal rule. The press loves a winner, but it loves a crisis even more. One week, Carlos is the smiling future of tennis. Next week, every missed tournament becomes a courtroom, and every silence from his camp becomes evidence. Convenient, isn't it? Where was this concern before his wrist became bigger news than his forehand? Is the media truly protecting Alcaraz, or simply protecting its next dramatic headline? Hit that subscribe button right now, because we are exposing how the applause around Carlos may have been fake support all along, and why his most painful match might be against the people who once called him tennis royalty. To understand why this feels so harsh, remember how quickly the sport adopted Carlos as its new leading man. Tennis had spent years wondering what would happen after Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic stopped owning every major stage. Then Alcaraz arrived with explosive movement, fearless drop shots, a huge forehand, and a smile wide enough to sell tickets from Madrid to Melbourne. Suddenly, the future had a face. Broadcasters called him special. Former champions compared him with legends. Tournament posters placed him in the center. Whenever he chased down an impossible ball and finished the point at the net, the commentary box sounded ready to nominate him for sainthood. Apparently, sliding on clay while smiling is the fastest route to becoming the sport's favorite son. That praise was not completely fake. Nobody can watch Alcaraz at full speed and pretend the talent is ordinary. He became the youngest men's world #1, collected major titles on different surfaces, and proved he could win ugly when the pretty tennis disappeared. His matches brought energy during a difficult changing of the guard. Fans needed someone who could turn a routine rally into a trailer for an action movie. Carlos delivered. However, support becomes questionable when it depends on constant victory. A real backer stays steady through a bad set, a poor month, or an injury break. A content machine does something else. It celebrates the champion while he is useful, then studies every crack in the armor because broken heroes attract clicks too. The change did not happen with one giant headline. Instead, it arrived point by point. Questions about his schedule grew louder. Debates about exhibitions appeared whenever he discussed the crowded calendar. His holidays became evidence in arguments about commitment. One racket smash in Cincinnati was examined like a crime scene, even though tennis history is filled with shattered frames from players treated as passionate warriors. Carlos apologized, but the clip kept traveling. Apparently, a young champion can sprint for 3 hours, produce magic under pressure, and still be placed on trial because one racket had a very bad afternoon. That is the first sign of conditional support. Mistakes are not treated as moments, they become personality tests. Then came the injury problem, and the tone became even colder. A wrist issue is terrifying for any player, especially one whose game depends on violent acceleration, touch, and confidence. The joint is small, but its control over a tennis career is enormous. A healthy wrist creates heavy topspin, disguise, and late racket speed. A damaged one can turn a routine forehand into a question mark. Alcaraz did not merely lose tournament appearances. He lost match rhythm, ranking opportunities, preparation time, and the daily certainty that his strongest weapons would obey him. Yet much of the conversation jumped past the human cost and raced straight toward suspicion. How serious is it? Why is the team quiet? What are they hiding? Those questions are fair up to a point. Fans buy tickets. Tournaments advertise star players. Reporters are expected to seek information. Still, there is a difference between asking for an update and treating limited medical detail as proof of drama. Athletes do not owe the world every scan, injection, painful morning, or private fear. Recovery is not a reality show, although parts of the sports press seem deeply offended by that fact. When Alcaraz's camp chose caution, the empty space quickly filled with theories. Silence became a scandal. Privacy became strategy. Uncertainty became bait. The player was injured, yet somehow he also became responsible for keeping everyone entertained during rehabilitation. That is a brutal second serve to face. Here is where the fake support charge lands. The media loved Carlos as a symbol, but symbols are not allowed to be tired, hurt, confused, or private. Think about the image that had been built around him. Alcaraz was sold as endless joy in tennis shoes. He smiled after impossible points. He praised opponents. He played with freedom. That version was easy to market because it asked nothing uncomfortable from the audience. Once Carlos admitted mental struggles, questioned parts of the calendar, or stepped away because his body demanded it, the simple poster began to tear. Suddenly, honesty was analyzed as weakness. Rest was discussed as poor planning. A private recovery process was viewed as suspicious. The sport claimed to love his openness, but only when the answers remained cheerful enough for a highlight package. On one hand, analysts say elite champions must accept scrutiny. That is true. World number one players receive bigger trophies, richer deals, prime court assignments, and far more attention than someone grinding through qualifying. Pressure comes with the ranking. On the other hand, scrutiny should not become a rigged tiebreak where every outcome counts against the player. If Carlos competes while hurt, critics ask why his team risked him. When he withdraws, they question his toughness. If he explains the injury, experts inspect every word. When he stays quiet, those same experts complain about secrecy. Wonderful system, isn't it? Heads, the headline wins. Tails, Carlos loses. The exhibition debate exposed that double standard perfectly. Alcaraz has criticized the heavy schedule, and critics have answered by pointing toward lucrative exhibition matches. That is a reasonable topic. Players cannot attack workload while pretending optional events require no energy. Yet the argument is often presented without balance. Exhibition tennis offers control, fewer ranking consequences, and sometimes a lighter competitive load than a deep run through a mandatory event. It also pays extremely well, which obviously matters in a professional sport. Calling out the contradiction is fair. Using it to dismiss every concern about the calendar is lazy. A few optional matches do not magically repair a season packed with travel, changing surfaces, longer Masters events, media duties, and almost no real off-season. Look at the pattern. When Carlos speaks, his words can be stretched beyond their original point. If he refuses to speak, the silence is stretched instead. That is not support, it is extraction. Every emotion becomes material. Every loss needs a crisis. Each injury needs a hidden reason. Even his famous smile creates a trap, because people begin expecting that expression regardless of what is happening inside. A champion can be grateful and still be exhausted. He can love tennis while hating parts of the system. He can enjoy an exhibition and still believe the official calendar is harmful. Real lives hold two truths at once. Rage-driven coverage prefers one villain, one victim, and a giant red arrow. Before we go deeper, drop your opinion below. Has tennis media treated Alcaraz fairly, or did the applause disappear as soon as his body stopped producing weekly highlights? Reaction from inside tennis has been more human than some of the noise around it. Rivals have publicly wished Alcaraz well because they understand what an injury can steal. Jannik Sinner, the man most often presented as Carlos's greatest obstacle, has shown respect rather than using the absence for cheap points. Former players have debated the lack of detail, with some worrying the problem may be worse than reported, and others recognizing the competitive value of privacy. Those positions can both come from genuine concern. Trouble begins when reasonable uncertainty gets dressed up as certainty for the sake of a dramatic thumbnail. Officials and tournaments face their own uncomfortable incentives. They want healthy stars, but they also want those stars inside the draw. An event without Alcaraz loses ticket appeal, television energy, and one of its biggest stories. Consequently, public messages usually offer warm wishes while the business side quietly counts the damage. Tennis organizations speak about player welfare, then build seasons that send athletes across continents with barely enough time to unpack a suitcase. The calendar stretches, Masters events grow longer, recovery windows shrink. Everyone says health comes first, provided health does not interfere with the schedule, sponsors, broadcasters, or hospitality packages. Satire almost becomes unnecessary when the system writes jokes that dark. The Professional Tennis Players Association has pointed toward rising injury concerns and argued that the tour must take workload seriously. Whether fans agree with every proposal or legal move, the larger issue cannot be brushed away. Top players missing major warm-ups is not random background noise. Bodies are sending the sport an alarm. Alcaraz's wrist is part of that bigger picture, not merely a personal failure or a mystery designed for studio debate. Tennis demands repeated acceleration, sudden stops, violent rotation, and constant grip changes. Add travel, practice, promotional work, and pressure, then act surprised when something breaks. That is like scheduling 5 sets against a wall and blaming the ball for looking tired. Media coverage could help by keeping the focus on the system. Instead, personality stories are easier to sell. The calendar may be structurally unsafe, requires data, context, and patience. Carlos is hiding something, requires a question mark and an alarming photograph. One story challenges powerful decision-makers. The other places a 23-year-old athlete under the microscope. Guess which version travels faster online? This is why the support can feel fake. Praise celebrates his value to the machine, while criticism protects the machine by making his body, choices, and attitude the entire problem. None of this means Alcaraz should escape honest analysis. His team must make smart scheduling decisions. Communication can sometimes reduce needless speculation. Playing paid exhibitions while complaining about workload will continue inviting hard questions. Carlos is an adult superstar with enormous resources, not a helpless child. Still, accountability must remain proportionate. A questionable choice does not erase the calendar problem. Limited communication does not prove deception. An injury does not reveal weak character. Losing momentum does not cancel a career. Fair analysis separates evidence from suspicion. Fake support blends them together, adds dramatic music, and calls the result concern. Imagine the mental weight of this comeback. First, Carlos must trust the wrist through serves, forehands, defensive stretches, and reflex volleys. Next, he must rebuild timing against opponents who will attack any hesitation. Beyond that, he knows every grimace will be clipped, slowed down, and examined. One shake of the hand could launch 100 posts. A poor serving set might become proof that he returned too early. If he wins, the injury was supposedly exaggerated. Should he lose, the career panic begins before he reaches the locker room. The scoreboard will show 2 players, but the match will contain an entire press room. The heartbreaking part is not that critics exist. It is that many of them built Alcaraz into a superhero, then acted betrayed when they discovered a human body beneath the cape. History shows how this cycle works. Young stars are introduced as saviors because the sport fears an empty throne. Their victories are treated as proof that the future has arrived. Comparisons with legends grow before the player has time to breathe. Eventually, a loss, injury, coaching change, or frustrated moment breaks the perfect image. Coverage then swings too far in the other direction because downfall stories generate stronger emotion than steady development. Carlos did not create that cycle, but he became its ideal target. His rise was fast, his tennis was spectacular, and his personality was marketable. The pedestal went up overnight. Now every setback looks farther because the drop was designed to appear enormous. Comparisons with Nadal added another layer. Calling Carlos the next Rafa created excitement, yet it also handed him an impossible job. Nadal's pain tolerance, clay dominance, and long career became the measuring stick before Alcaraz had finished building his own identity. Whenever Carlos rested, somebody could invoke Rafa's suffering. Whenever he showed emotion, another legend entered the debate. Such comparisons sound like praise, but they often function as pressure. Wearing a friendly shirt, supporting Alcaraz should mean allowing him to become Carlos, not demanding a remake of a champion whose body also paid a terrible price for greatness. Fans play a role too. Social media can deliver warmth directly to an athlete, but it can also turn a bad bet into abuse within seconds. Alcaraz has admitted that online comments affect him, and that honesty should invite empathy. Instead, some people treat emotional openness as fresh ammunition. Angry gamblers do not care about recovery plans or human limits. They care that a result damaged their slip. Then the ugliest messages arrive, often aimed at players and families. Media outlets cannot control every account, but constant crisis framing feeds the atmosphere. If each loss is presented as betrayal, unstable fans begin behaving as if the player owes them an apology. Alcaraz also has power in this fight. He can set boundaries, choose what to disclose, and refuse narratives that do not reflect his position. Clear statements from his camp may calm some confusion, although no statement will satisfy an industry paid to keep asking questions. Strong scheduling choices can protect his body and weaken claims of contradiction. More than anything, returning only when ready would send the boldest message. A rushed comeback might satisfy 1 week of headlines while threatening years of championship tennis. Winning the long rally matters more than pleasing the press after the first shot. So remember the real question when Carlos finally steps back onto the baseline. Will the media support the person returning from pain, or only the champion capable of feeding tomorrow's headlines? The answer will arrive after the first loss, not the first win. Anyone can clap when the trophy rises. Loyalty is measured when the racket is quiet, the ranking is threatened, and the comeback looks uncertain. Carlos Alcaraz does not need a free pass. He needs fair coverage, room to recover, and criticism based on facts instead of convenient drama. Tennis should celebrate his brilliance without demanding that he perform happiness through pain. If you agree, hit like, subscribe so you do not miss the next update, and drop your final verdict in the comments right now. Was the media ever truly behind Alcaraz, or was it only standing behind the trophies? Until his comeback answers everything, that may remain the most heartbreaking question in tennis.